I would like to call the General Services Committee together. And at this time, I would make a motion to approve the minutes of our March 18th committee. Could I get a second? Thank you. And also, Lewis County OHV Trail System Community Connections Initiative, Jackie Mahoney, Director of Parks and Recreation and Forestry. We'll give a 10-minute or whatever presentation.
Yes, hopefully, because I'm not doing it, it'll work. Do you have a pointer or? Okay. So we've been doing a community connections initiative since probably April 25th. We discussed it at the roundtable. We'd always been trying to connect the different areas. At the roundtable, we highlighted 4 areas we really want to work on. One being Martinsburg to Glenfield through Watson. Another one, Hideaway to West Leyden and then to Osceola. And Gregg and Lyons Falls, Lionsdale, Port Leyden, different areas that we wanted to work on. And this has been going on since the spring of 23. So if you look at what our current access is, there's a lot of gaps. Nothing through Watson connecting the northern area with the rest. So our goal is to connect areas by businesses with trails following New York State law and working with the towns and the county. So by doing this, we set up an area. Obviously, I start with county roads because that's who I work for. We met with the town of Martinsburg. We met with the town of Watson, discuss what their goals and objectives are as far as ATV access. We highlighted the roads that we were considering at this time. We created a 200-foot buffer on each of those roads, had real property send me labels for every landowner within 200 feet of any of those roads. A mailing went out. It was dated June 13th, 2023. We posted a notice in the Journal and Republican regarding our public outreach meeting. We did notices on the Moose, 99.3 and 103.1, and we did an online survey. So anybody that couldn't come, they could call, they had our information. We did the public presentation at the 3G Fire Hall. We had 29 people attending. We had them sign in whether they were against trails and expansion, if they really weren't sure, just wanted more information, or if they were for trails. We had one person against. He didn't want it on his property. He didn't want anything to do with it. And he was very thankful that we explained it. And everybody else was for it. Opening roads is not easy. New York State limits us to opening roads between trails and areas. Our online survey, which we also kept track of any phone calls coming in, we had 49 participants, and out of the 49, we only had 4 against it. They were ones that did not want it on their property. So we do outreach, we get landowners. So each of the blue rectangles are a landowner that agreed for trails. So we look like we're doing good. We think we're getting closer. Things happen. Glenfield Complete Streets project comes up. So we delay it. Obviously, we don't want to do a road opening in the middle of a construction zone. In the meantime, we lose a landowner because he sold his property. We lose a landowner because the property owner died. So we scale back for those that we do have agreements for. And we work with the town of Martinsburg because we're going to need Water Street. We have landowners on Cemetery Street to Water Street, along Glendale Road, Glendale to Glenfield Road, on Main Street, and in Blue Street. So this is what our proposal is for today, is the consideration of opening the county routes, Glendale Road, Main Street, Blue Street, it's all the same, and Glenfield Road. So with that, I will take questions, but I will have you know, the process is not quick when we do this. Even after the landowners sign, we do a complete seeker review, state environmental quality review on each of the parcels and the roads to address the impacts. I did send you a copy of each of the seekers. And then we're doing this public meeting to see if there's any other concerns or interests. So. Questions? I know a few of you have reached out earlier with concerns. I hope I addressed them with this as well. This is not a quick process. Like I said, we were held up with the Complete Streets project. I did have to scale it back to just the Glenfield side. We are continuing to work on expansions, but this is what we have ready to go.
Jackie, the property owners that were against it, did they give reason or?
Mike Caldwell called me and he said he was all for trails, but as a working farm and with them not sure what they were doing in the next 5 years, he really didn't want to commit to opening any of his properties to trails. Some of the ones that were against were farmers, and I get that. We do work with farmers. We have brushback fields, trimmed hedgerows, made room for the trails along the edge of fields, but it's always a risk. And all our access agreements are just a contract. So the landowners have all the rights on where it goes, how it works. They don't benefit from having a trail on their property. We do. So we do everything we can for them: culverts, bridges, stones, barriers, gates, but we don't pay them. So there's not a lot of incentive to be a landowner unless you're like Gorsica's and they're doing an Airbnb. And they wanted it. They wanted it since 2019. Getting all our pieces together has been slow. So, we try to do everything the legal way, and we're trying to prove our otherwise impossible. If we could have off-road trails to connect these areas, we would.
Also, there's been a lot of correspondence with the DOT for highway
Yes,
work
we do
permits and-
have our DOT permits in hand, ready to go for each of the crossings. None of the trails or roads obviously need a New York State DEC permit or Army Corps of Engineers permit. So we're good that way, but we do, and before we put the trails in, we'll drag John around and make sure that our location for coming out onto the road is good for his sight distance as well. It's something we always look at when we look at trails anyways. Safety is our first concern.
I received one verbal complaint from a resident of the Glendale Road.
Okay.
They called me up and said they were dead set against it.
Yep. And we've done everything we can to find alternative routes. So, the choice is yours, but I will say I've documented everything we've done. We've tried to find off-road trails to make this connection work.
Do you see, Jackie, any increase of, like you mentioned, the Airbnbs and cabins and things like that?
A lot of our community connections have started with businesses saying, I really want to be connected. How do I get the road to me open? How do I get connected to the trail system so people can come here? And we all know, we've all been out there. People are riding all over anyways. We want to try to keep it to what's legal for the safety concerns.
Jackie, I've been told there's 2 trails going to Glenfield. Is there 2 trails?
So this will connect the railroad trail that goes to Burdick's Crossing to Martinsburg. So yes, it's not a dead end. So it's a connection through. Before, going to Glenfield was a dead end in Glenfield.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jackie?
I have one. And in addition, with the working with Martinsburg, it'll be like, say, trailhead parking where people can offload at the old field day ground.
Yes, so the field day grounds, Town of Martinsburg has purchased it. We're going to put a parking area in there with a kiosk. We're also going to add a kiosk to their parking at the town barn. So people that are coming off the hill know where they are and where they're going. We're actually adding parking at Pioneer Cafe with a kiosk as well. Another place to go, another business that was very interested. And then Town of Martinsburg also wants access for Whitaker Park. They allow ATVs into the campsites. Oops.
Any other questions for Jackie? Thank you,
Guess you have to
Jackie.
turn it off. Thank you.
That was very informative. Thanks. Okay, we're going on to draft resolutions.
The first one is authorizing the purchase, acquisition, and acceptance of real property in the form of right-of-ways adjacent to Marshy Road over West Branch Oswegatchie River in the town of Diana, and those payments for said property be charged against the bridge replacement project.
Any discussion?
When do we anticipate that project starting? Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Urging Governor Hochul to oppose the New York Heat Act during the 2025 budget process and legislative session, and work together to develop alternative energy policies that are affordable, sustainable, and mindful of the economic impacts on New York families and workers.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to also make a comment on that is, this is a slow phase out of natural gas. And I think the county needs all the diverse portfolio of energy sources within the county itself. Because once you phase out natural gas, you're going to replace it with electrical. And you know where the electrical is going to come from? More renewables. So this is and I believe it's Senator Liz Kruger that's trying to push this through.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Declaring no significant environmental impact from the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Review and adding the proposed addition of approximately 3.2 miles of county property and Robert and Jacqueline Aiden property to the Lewis County OHV trail system.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Authorizing the addition of approximately 3.2 miles of county property and Robert and Jacqueline Aiden properties to the Lewis County OHV trail system.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Declaring no significant environmental impact from the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Review and adding the proposed addition of approximately 678 feet of Lynette Franks and Scott Lamson property and Louise Jr. and Connie Gorsica property to the Lewis County OHV trail system.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Authorizing the addition of approximately 678 feet of Lynette Franks and Scott Lamson property and Louise Jr. and Connie Gorsica property to the Lewis County OHV trail system.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Adopting local law number 1-2025, a local law permitting all-terrain vehicle / off-highway vehicle operation on approximately 0.1 miles of a certain portion of County Road 30, which is Cemetery Road and Mill Street in the town of Martinsburg, to connect the existing OHV trail system from the town of Martinsburg Trail to and through the Franks Lamson property.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Adopting local law number 2-2025, a local law permitting all-terrain vehicle / off-highway vehicle operation on approximately 5 miles of a certain portion of County Road 32, which is Glendale Road, in the town of Martinsburg to connect the Tiss Trail, the Gorsica Trail, Whitaker Park, and Frank's Lamson Trail.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Adopting local law number 3-2025, a local law permitting all-terrain vehicle / off-highway vehicle operation on approximately 0.3 miles of a certain portion of County Road 80, which is the Glenfield Road, in the town of Martinsburg to connect the existing OHV trail system from the Tiss Trail to and through the Glenfield School Trail.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Adopting local law number 4-2025, a local law permitting all-terrain vehicle / off-highway vehicle operation on approximately 1.1 miles of a certain portion of County Road 53, which is Main Street and Blue Street, in the town of Martinsburg to connect the existing OHV trail system from the Pioneer Trail to the Glenfield School Trail and Field Day Trail.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried. Okay, there are no motions, and I would like a motion to go into executive session. Okay, we are going into executive session.
To talk about personnel matter for the promotion, demotion, or status of a
Okay,
personnel.
thank you. And I just want to remind you to read the reports that are attached to your packet. And I need a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
A committee meeting for Human Services to order. I'm making a motion to approve the March 18th committee minutes if no amendments. Do I have a second? Tom? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moved. And then we're going to start off with a presentation today. We are going to do the Jefferson Lewis Mobile Crisis. Going to invite Anna Platts, Director of Community Services, and also Michelle Monnet and Tim Bruin forward to do the presentation. Thank you.
Everybody? Ooh. Thanks, Connor. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for having us today. Hopefully you all recognize me, but I have Tim Ritton here with me today. He's the Director of Community Services in Jefferson County, and Michelle Monnet, the President and CEO of the Children's Home of Jefferson County. We're going to be giving you an update today on the Jefferson Lewis Mobile Crisis Project. This hopefully sounds a little familiar. It is one of your legislative goals this year to get Mobile Crisis up and running by July 1st. And this truly is a team effort. This is a joint initiative between Jefferson and Lewis County. And we now have our mobile crisis provider identified in the Children's Home. And so we're going to be kind of going back and forth today to give you an update on how we got here and where we are headed. And I will say, I want to mention too that this was one of the last projects that I kind of inherited from Pat before she retired. She has been working very closely with Tim for the last couple of years to get this project to where it is today. And I really am like helping see it over the finish line. So thank you to Pat for all the work that she has done to get us where we are today.
Good afternoon. Yeah, so like what Anna said, Pat and I talked about this for quite a while. It became clear early on that under the billing model and the way that mobile crisis works in New York State, it would have been really impossible for Lewis County to have the numbers that would provide, enough work to make it sustainable financially. So it became clear early on that the only way we were going to be able to move forward would be as a bi-county project. So once we got to that point and we sort of sold those concepts to our various boards, that's when we kind of started to move forward with the planning. So we'll hit some of the background, what data and assessment was done to get to the point of putting out an RFP. Then we'll cover the timeline. Michelle will have some time to talk about her agency and what they'll be bringing, and then we'll have time for questions. So prior to this, well, currently, we have in each county separate hotline numbers, which provide 24/7 hotline coverage. However, neither of us have mobile crisis. Jefferson has had sort of a hybrid system. While we didn't have mobile crisis, we did have a follow-up component. So if someone called the hotline on a evening, the next day, the crisis response person could follow up with them and provide support, connect them to services. Our system, though, is extremely expensive for what we're getting back out of it. We had been contracting with an outside entity, and the price continued to go up. The service continued to dwindle and become poor. And it was really time to make the jump to a mobile crisis system. Fortunately, that coincided with kind of the rollout of the 988 hotline, national hotline number, and New York State's commitment to creating a comprehensive crisis system. There were 10 counties identified over the past couple of years that did not have mobile crisis. Jefferson and Lewis were on that list. And each county that was identified was provided with $600,000 in startup funding. So we also, Pat and I, decided early on that it was way too big of a job with way too many moving parts to try to do it out of our offices without expert assistance. Fort Drum Regional Health Planning Organization is an agency that I work with constantly on multiple projects. I have the privilege of sitting on their board as part of their charter. They require that community services director be on the board. And they've done some really great work with regard to project management and data collection over the years. So we knew they were the right entity. So we did a sole source contract with FDR HPO. And they went through, and this is a very light list of the work that they've done so far. In 2023, they started to look at, well, they looked at the 2023 911 mental health call data, the crisis hotline data. So that was both counties, along with 988 data, which is done out of Syracuse. They had multiple stakeholder discussions, which included providers, 911 dispatch, law enforcement, BOCES. That also included talking to various government stakeholders, Office of Mental Health, and other counties that are currently doing this. And then there were other discussions as well. So talking to the different counties, Victims Assistance Center, Northern Regional Center for Independent Living, Mental Health Association. Those were really important because Victims Assistance Center in Jefferson County already has a pretty robust crisis response system in place. It works well for our local law enforcement. And we didn't want to rewrite anything or make it overly burdensome. So we tried to take as much from what was existing as we could.
All right, now I'm going to take you through some of the data that was compiled during that robust assessment process. And we're going to look at data related to in-person response, what that would look like, and also current hotline data. So in those discussions and the robust data analysis that FDR HPO did, they determined that the highest volume of need for crisis services for within Jefferson and Lewis County was within the Watertown zip code. So 49% of crisis calls, and I should have started by saying when we're talking about crisis here, we're talking about behavioral health crisis, so mental health crises. As far as geographic spread, 75% of all calls analyzed were limited to 10 communities, with again, the largest percentage of those calls being in Watertown, with Lowville coming in second. And then the travel time. So of the top 75% of in-person responses, one-way travel time was within about a 30-minute radius of Watertown, with the exception of Glenfield. When we look at days of the week and time of day, so 911 mental health calls, both weekend days had less mental health responses than weekdays, but there was no significant difference between weekdays. Call volume, so the highest volume of these calls, these behavioral health calls, come between the hours of 3 and 9 p.m., and the lowest volume is between 12 a.m. and 7 a.m. The range of calls can vary quite a bit. A typical range is between 0 and 6 calls per day, with an average of 3, but they did see as many as 11 calls in one day. When we're looking at time of day, the highest volume of calls occurred from 8 to, I believe that should say 12 p.m. Oh, no, that is right. 8 to 8:59 p.m. and then from 9 to 9:59 p.m. The lowest volume of calls occurs very early in the morning from 4 to 6 a.m. When we looked at frequency in reviewing these calls, a typical range to expect would be 2 to 8 calls per day, although there were days with only 1 call and then a day with as many as 19 calls. So quite a discrepancy from day to day. The highest volume of these calls occurs on Saturdays, followed by Sunday, and each call can really range in time. The average duration of a call was about 10.5 minutes, with as many up to about 12.9 minutes. We did exclude any calls that were less than 1 minute. All of this data was used to inform the RFP, and the various components that providers were or entities interested in applying were, all of this data was provided to them so they could take it into consideration when completing their RFP. And I'll let Tim tell you more about that, because this RFP was actually administered by Jefferson County on our behalf.
So we worked very closely with our purchasing department. Anna was an integral part of that. And FDR HPO, really, the contract that we did with them ended up being way bigger than I thought it was going to be, as far as the work that they put into it. And really through developing the RFP in collaboration with my purchasing department. So we wanted to make sure that the administrative requirements were in there: telephonic triage, mobile crisis intervention, follow-up services, and reporting requirements were all going to be built into the responses. As far as funding, like I had said earlier, each county has 600 in startup. And then in Jefferson County Community Services, we're in a bit of a transition in some of the service provision that we have. And that's leaving some money on the table from Office of Mental Health. Fortunately, many of those dollars are able to fit onto the crisis line. So we're able to put $450 annually into the service. And it's really important to have that, because the billable services, while you can bill for crisis services, it's not a sure thing. it requires that you collect all of the information necessary and that the person be eligible for Medicaid. So it's iffy at best. So the timeline was actually pretty aggressive. We dropped the RFP on January 15th. March 4th, the selection committee met. That was the day after the deadline. Selection was made on March 7th. We had 2 excellent submissions. And to be honest, I would have been happy with either entity being awarded. The bottom line was that the children's home already had an existing footprint in Lewis County, and we thought that that was important, very important. And that was really, I think, probably the biggest deciding factor. Contract was just approved by the Jefferson County Board of Legislature on the 1st of this month. We submitted the mobile crisis plan to Office of Mental Health, and we'll be starting community education and outreach plan development and implementation. Some mobile crisis services will be up and running July 1st. I also want to add that in Jefferson County, this is coinciding with a pretty big package addressing the homelessness situation in Jefferson. So we'll be fielding outreach teams for homelessness, and we'll be working with FDR-HPO on the homelessness side for data collection as well. I think all of that's going to tie together really well.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm Michelle Monnett from the Children's Home. And thank you for Children's Home being selected for this RFP. We do have services here in Lewis County. Recently, I became the CEO a little over a year ago. And it was really important for us. We've been saying we provide services in the Tri-County area for years now. And we weren't, we were saying we were in Lewis County, and it became important for us. So we worked with Pat and Anna to get a satellite clinic open here in Lewis County. We are open in the community services DSS location 2 days a week and ready to expand to 3 days, potentially even looking to have 5-day-a-week services and potentially even beyond here in Lewis County. So we've been operating mental health services. A lot of times people think Children's Home, they think that orphanage on State Street, or they think you're not even open anymore. I thought you closed a few years ago. So we've been doing mental health services now for nearly 2 decades, outpatient behavioral health services. And for a decade, we've been doing children's crisis respite services right on that campus. It still continues today. So that is all allowing us to be able to provide this service. We have been doing crisis services, the mobile crisis that Tim mentioned in Jefferson County now for almost a decade, where we provide that follow-up service to our clients. And there have been times we've been deployed out here in Lewis County. Sometimes it's a mental health crisis, and sometimes it's just life crisis. We came out this past summer with all of the flooding to help. And we've also been doing Children's Home. We do a lot of kids services, right? So a few years ago, we started to do what's called the Community School Liaison Program. What that program is intended to do is help kids in schools, stay in schools and connect to services. Our goal is that if kids can stay in their home, in their community, with the supports in place and not end up in a hospital setting, it's much more statistically sound for long-term success. So our program going forward, we've been working very closely with law enforcement, and we intend to extend all of that into Lewis County as well, working with the traumatic loss team, working with the Lewis County Sheriff's Department, to make sure that the services are met here. A lot of times we're asked, how are you going to get to Lowville or Port Leyden in a short period of time, right? So our plan is actually, we have staff that already live in Lewis County. We have 2 clinicians that live here. We'll also be partnering with the Northern Regional Center for Independent Living to use some of their peer supports. They have 28 peers that live in Lewis County that we'll be able to use. And also drawing upon telehealth services and mobile access right here. We also will be working very closely with Thrive. Our intention is we cannot possibly be the best at everything. We do kids services really well. I think we do adult services as well, but other folks do adult services equally as well, and it gives community members choice in who their service provider is. We want to reduce as much stigma as possible. So our intention is to help people meet their needs where they're at and provide as much community-based as possible. Our goal here is to help maintain people safely in the community. This also helps to reduce taxpayer dollars because we're allowing people to get services at the lowest level of care to meet their needs, reducing the cost of care at hospital settings or residential settings. We'll also be providing follow-up services. So the services are going to look like pretty much anything. Somebody calls in and they want to talk to somebody. That's the majority of the calls that we get today. Some of those calls will require mobile crisis response with or without law enforcement. At all times, we are going to offer follow-up services. We found in our local contract that we have, 90% of people that we talk to are willing to take a phone call the next day or even allow us to come out to their home or their community setting to be able to chat with them. Not everyone has to take additional services, but we find that oftentimes that this is the time that people are most willing to accept help and therefore most likely to change. So connecting folks. Those follow-up services may not be with the Children's Home. It may be with Thrive or another community partner. And again, we're looking to reduce those hospitalizations, reduce unnecessary police interventions whenever possible, and help keep people safe. We don't want anyone to die as a result of services. So the process is relatively simple. Anyone in Jefferson or Lewis County will be able to call a hotline number, and we're working through. My implementation manager told me we have like 75 days left to go, which I don't want to wish away because I like June, I like summer, I want to extend it as long as possible. But so people will call in, they'll have an opportunity to talk to a licensed clinician or another professional who it might be a peer. Sometimes the calls are simple calls and other times they're more complex. We do assessments, we triage and determine if somebody needs immediate response. We might call the police and say this person is in danger, we need to get them help. We might be able to talk to them for 15 minutes and schedule follow-up services. One of the most important features of our plan, though, is 911 dispatch will have a direct line into our crisis system. I keep calling it the bat phone. I want one of those red phones on my desk like Adam West had. So 911 will be able to call in directly. The idea here is we want to be able to support the police and law enforcement as quickly as possible, sort of supersede anyone else in the line to get ahead. If we need to deploy services, we'll deploy services. In most cases, we're going to try to get to wherever we need within an hour. During business hours, we'll be able to deploy multiple teams just because of the breadth of our agency, as well as Thrive and NERCL to be able to support everyone in our community. Nights and weekends, it will likely be one team that's able to respond. And we'll get to whoever we can as fast as we can and deploy the closest people. If necessary, when people can't stay in their home, we'll look to either a crisis stabilization center. Citizens Advocate in Watertown has an adult crisis residence program. And then we also have Children's Home has a children's crisis residence program, and CA also has a children's program. So again, whenever possible, we'll do whatever we can to keep folks out of the hospital. And then always we will be offering and providing the follow-up services. Any questions? Anna's going to answer them all.
I will just mention that, so we mentioned earlier, there's going to be a robust community education and outreach plan, and that maybe if you all are looking for a call to action today, we could really use your help when it comes to informing our community about that change in the contact number. So right now, the crisis line that is distributed widely in our community belongs to Thrive, the former Behavioral Health and Wellness Clinic. And so we'll be changing that number. There's a plan in place to roll their current number into the new number that's being established. But community education and key community partner outreach is going to be essential to informing the community about this change in our service, in our crisis services. It will be the Children's Home has a great plan, and we're in the process of identifying key stakeholders to meet with, but we could use your help in letting your constituents know about this change as well. So more to come on that front, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or defer them to someone
And is
else.
the number just calling 911?
No, it's going to be, it's a different phone number. If someone does call 911 and it's a mental health related call, dispatch will call the BAT line.
Okay.
But there will be a different phone number, just like there is right now. We have 911 and Thrive has a strictly crisis line. And so that crisis line is the one that's going to change. But
So we
people,
can start publicizing that soon, that number?
yes. Yep.
Anna, can you guys put together like a one-page informational thing that we could get out to the towns and villages?
Absolutely.
Would be great.
Any other questions? All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Hannah. Okay, so next I would invite Tim up, and he's going to give us an update on OFA.
I'll do it right from here. So I met with Carla to chat about the congregate meal sites. The participation in the Copenhagen meal site has dwindled to the point where they're questioning whether it should be open. There are really three models. We have Meals on Wheels, where we deliver to homebound people. We have the congregate meal site, which meets 4 days a week, and we have 6 of those sites around the county. And then we have the one in West Leiden, which is kind of a hybrid where it's a restaurant style congregate meal site. So we talked with Carla a little bit about what we could potentially do. Now, the ramifications of turning that into a restaurant style would be financially very significant. We've had to cut back quite a bit on West Leiden just because the participation was extraordinarily high. So what we've agreed to do, or what we think the best model would be, is that the Copenhagen site will remain open till the end of this year. That Carla will start meeting with some legislators and start to formulate a plan for next year's budget on the best way to utilize the resources we have available, and how we can take care of the most number of seniors appropriately. So that was kind of, we don't want to take anything away from folks. We want to figure out how we do this. And I will tell you, just to give you an idea, overall, her budget is about $700,000 a year for meals. And that's about $350,000 of that comes from Lewis County. The other comes from New York State. And so we participate to about a $350,000 level. Meals on Wheels is obviously the largest portion of that, and then the congregate meal site, and then a little bit of that hybrid site. So she's going to be reaching out to a number of legislators, and we're going to start working on a plan for 2026 and how that could look.
Tim, I would just ask that Carla include me in that since it's my district that's being changed. Perfect. We do not have any resolutions or motions or executive session today. Is there anyone else that had anything? Okay, then I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Barry, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.
call the Finance and Rules Committee together. Start off with, I'll make a motion to approve the March 18th committee minutes if there are no amendments. Do I get a second? Herb? All in favor, aye? Opposed? Minutes are carried. And we have a couple presentations today. The first one is Snowbelt Housing Update from Robert Grunert Loud, Executive Director of Snowbelt Housing.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert Grunert Loud, and I'm the Executive Director of Snowbelt Housing Company. Been on the job for about 2 months now and really settling into Lewis County nicely. I appreciate the chance to share where we are today and where we're going. Snowbelt is Lewis County's only housing-focused nonprofit. We exist to strengthen communities by preserving and creating affordable housing by opening doors to home ownership. Our core values remain rooted in dignity, equity, and local solutions, but we also know Snowbelt has faced real challenges. Our reputation has taken some hits, and we're doing the hard work of acknowledging that. That's why we're in the midst of a 5-year strategic planning effort. We're reevaluating our mission, operations, and programs to make sure we're truly meeting Lewis County's current and future housing needs. The first arm of our business is the Homeless Prevention and Housing Navigation segment. Our homeless prevention program is one of the most direct ways we serve vulnerable residents. Right now, we're working with 31 individuals and households, helping them find temporary and permanent housing and regain stability. We pair compassionate support with clear expectations. We provide the tools, but clients are expected to take the initiative. It's not always easy, but results speak for themselves. Dozens have been housed and are rebuilding. This program is a lifeline in our community. Next, we have our home rehabilitation programs. We're also preserving home ownership across Lewis County through home repairs. We manage 11 active projects under the county's $653,000 CDBG grant as the subgrant recipient. These focus on critical issues, roofing, heating, accessibility that keep people in their houses safely. In parallel, we're managing repairs to 24 homes that were damaged by flooding. This includes everything from structural stabilization to mold remediation. This work helps families recover and communities stay resilient. Next, our property management division. Our property management division is solid. We oversee more than 160 affordable apartments with consistently low vacancy. Our properties house seniors, families, and individuals with special needs. We're not just landlords, we're long-term partners in housing stability. We make sure every unit is safe, clean, and treated with dignity. Next is a new era for Snowbelt. Snowbelt is entering a new era. We're not just preserving, we're building again. We're pursuing funding through the state's Affordable Homeownership Opportunity Program to construct up to 20 new houses for households under 80% of the area median income. These would be scattered across Lewis County and single-family homes for purchase. We're also applying to rehabilitate and resell 4 houses under the Homebuyer Development Program through HCR, creating further affordable homeownership opportunities. These are substandard, vacant, and underutilized properties that, for lack of a term, are pretty much boarded up right now. And lastly, at our Witten Place Apartments project in Port Leyden, we're planning a $2 million moderate rehab of all 12 units, including new mechanicals, roofing, interiors, and siding. The building hasn't seen investment since the 80s, and it's time. Looking ahead, to do this work at scale, we need strong county partnership. We'd love to see a revolving loan fund one that helps with pre-development and provides low-interest gap financing for local housing projects. Infrastructure investment is critical too. Broadband, power, water, and sewer. It all lays the groundwork for future development. And finally, we're interested in collaborating on a land bank with Jefferson County to streamline the property reuse and revitalization. And to add to that, some creative policy thinking, like potentially requiring major retailers like Dollar General to stock fresh food. And you've got a powerful toolkit for healthier and more sustainable communities. These measures will not just aid Snowbelt, but make it more attractive for other developers to start to look and notice Lewis County. Thank you for your time and your partnership. We know the road hasn't always been smooth, but we're ready to rebuild our projects, our relationships, and our impact. Let's work together and make sure Lewis County residents have access to stable and affordable housing. Any questions?
On the 20 houses, the new builds, are
Yes.
those using contractors, or is that like a Habitat for Humanity thing, or?
Those would be new construction on infill sites scattered throughout Lewis County. That would be using contractors that we'd put out to public bid.
Thanks.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next, we have a presentation on the Alpine Express route from Cassie Buell, our Director of Planning and Community Development.
I'm just going to turn on my stopwatch so I don't go over 6.5 minutes.
That's 6.5. It says 5.
Okay, 5. I can talk really fast. So the Alpine Express is the name of the route that Fort Drum has dubbed our shuttle service that we have been working on with them for about a year. You may recall that in January, you passed a resolution giving us the ability to enter into contract with Bernie Bus and Fort Drum through an ICSA agreement. And I'm going to give you more of the detail behind this system, its inception, and the ideas going forward. So giving you a brief history of this, Fort Drum had called myself, Jefferson County, and City Bus in Watertown together to try to develop an ICSA, which is an intergovernmental support agreement, where the Army partners with a local public partner to improve installation supports. And Jefferson County self-identified and said, we are not ready to support this request. Lewis County is already up and rolling. We already have buses. We already have a system operation provider. We're ready to go. We were more aligned for that than they were at the moment. So we were identified as the best option to move forward with in this partnership. System planning, it's been fun. Hasn't it, Tiffany? Tiffany started in April and really was thrown into this with project planning. She has learned a lot and she's done all of the hard work with this project. So, we hit the ground running in June when we were asked to help and assist. The first thing we did was assess the funding opportunities. So our system is fully funded. A big kudos to the legislators. We still hit that net zero every year. It doesn't cost the Lewis County taxpayers a dime. We get it all grant funded. And then we also work in additional revenue sources to backfill any of the deficiencies that we have because, there's public transportation is not a moneymaker. So we had to first get on the phone with NISDOT and they politely told us there's too much gray space for the federal funding that you receive, and it's not technically completely open to the public because there's a DoD badge requirement. So there was a few months of uncertainty with this route. Then we worked on bus stops and route configuration, which is, if you've ever been on a tour of the entire Fort Drum base, I invite you to, but it's a bit overwhelming until you really tear it apart with the GIS data that we were able to get our hands on. System operator, who was going to operate it? Luckily, we have Bernie Bus, and we had just authorized another 4-year agreement. So our intent is to add on to that 4-year agreement. Route needs, we've been working diligently with them on bus stop signs, the transit app, Wi-Fi modems, vehicles, fares, etc. And then of course the route budget. That's the most important piece. So huge roadblocks from the get-go. Like I said, there was some gray area with 5311 funding because we are required to have open door service and it has to be open to the public. New York State said that they weren't comfortable with working on funding this through 5311 funding, which is the federal funding. So that meant that Fort Drum had to request for full funding, which was great. That they knew that the need was there. Then we had to work through the vehicle purchases and useful life because a typical bus of ours lasts about 170,000 miles. And when our estimations are 1 year to do 120,000 to 170,000 miles, that adds a lot of cost to the route. On base facilities, there's a lot of analysis on where we want to go on base, health services, recreational areas, housing areas, system operator capabilities. Bernie Bus will have to add lots of drivers who, because they have to operate for 12 to 13 hour days. And then time. It's been a journey. It has been a fast and furious 6 to 9 month process. So we're running out of time and we definitely want to make sure that we get this in before the commander moves on to their next assignment. So where are we now? We are ready to launch. We have a target date of June 1st, which likely will be moved out because Fort Drum is still waiting on that final ICSA for us to sign with them. And just a few components of the route, we're going to be running 7 days a week, 12 to 13 hours each day, no holidays. Bernie, that was a requirement from Fort Drum. And Bernie Bus, it'll just be an additional service to our existing contract. Fort Drum will provide those on-space parking for the buses. They'll work with us on making sure that those areas are plowed quickly. First thing in the morning, if there is snow, they will provide the office space and a vehicle maintenance facility for Bernie Bus so that they can keep the buses on base. And Bernie Bus will operate the system with 6 to 7 new drivers and 2 to 3 new buses. And we, working with Vinny on this because he is the liaison with Fort Drum, he suggested that we reach out to DASNY for a grant. And luckily I reached out to them with a day's time on the clock, and we applied for it and we were able to get that funding. So we were able to buy a 3rd bus for this specific route and cut down on the costs. And we're estimating 120,000 miles a year, which is huge. So I just wanted to make sure that you receive these details. Vinny has these details. He's really excited about this. But I just wanted to make sure that you all knew something that was exciting coming up. And of course, it will be 100% paid for by this ICSA with Fort Drum. There will be no, we can't get any funding for it, but it will be no cost to the legislators and the taxpayers of Lewis County. It's just an extra service that we're providing them because they need a public contract. Well, 6 minutes and 15 seconds. So my original thought of 6:30.
You're pretty close.
I was close. Any questions? But I
just
do
like
want
to
to
say
get,
good work.
and that goes to Tiffany. I was the support behind, I'm the one barking up the tree, but Tiffany has done all the hard work here. And she's made some really great relationships with Fort Drum. Luckily, we do have a really, really solid relationship with Fort Drum. So anything else?
Any other questions? If not, thank you very
All
much,
right.
Kathy.
Thank you.
And we're ready to move on to draft resolutions.
The first one is adopting the employee meal allowance and reimbursement policy.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
The second one is authorizing a licensing and service agreement with Shy International Corporation effective May 1st, 2025 through April 30th, 2028 for software licenses and products under Microsoft 365 with cloud hosting at a cost not to exceed $100,000 annually.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
Number 3 is opposing the legislation granting New York Power Authority additional authority to own renewable energy and energy storage projects in New York State.
Questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
And the last one is appropriating $2,500.37 in CDBG payback funds to the Planning and Community Development Department to be used for various community projects.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried. We don't have any motions or executive session. Does anybody have anything else at this time? If
I
not,
do.
okay.
I just want to say thank you to Cassandra for working on that travel policy. I know I was kind of a pain in the butt on that, but I think I'm very happy with the way it turned out. Thank you very much.
Anybody have anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Herb, seconded by Jeff. All in favor? And we are adjourned.